or KTSM 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Might be having technical difficulties with one of those here, but in any case, we should be up in most of those places that you find us and that we are up on in order to make it the most available to you all in our continuing mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland. A lot to talk about today, and a lot we will, of course, be getting to, but, well, among one of the major things that we definitely talk about and commemorate on a day like today, at least the remembrances therein, are absolutely here as we are on August 3rd itself and the third anniversary of the August 3rd Cielo Vista Walmart shootings. We're going to be getting into some of those situations, of course, surrounding it and how it continues to move forward here when it comes to, well, many of the myriad issues such as how the case is progressing here, but just some of the things that we also, of course, have to do on a day like today is mention those victims, those that died in that shooting here as we have each year since it has happened. So, reading of the names here as we begin the program here. Maria Eugenia Lagareta Roth, Maria Flores, Maribel Hernandez Loya, Raul Flores, Sarah Esther Regalado Moriel, Adolfo Cerros Hernandez, Angelina Inglesby, Arturo Benavides, David Johnson, Elsa Mendoza Marquez, Gloria Irma Marquez, Ivan Filiberto Manzano, Javier Rodriguez, Jordan Anchando, Andrea Anchando, Juan de Dios Velázquez, Jorge Calvillo Garcia, Leonard Cepeda Campos, Luis Alfonso Juarez, Margie Record, Guillermo Memo Garcia, Alexander Gerard Hoffman Roth, and Teresa Sanchez. We remember these names because it is very important, not even just to ourselves, but to our community to do such a thing, and why we will continue to do so, particularly as we wait the continuation of this trial and all of the great importance that will absolutely have for this community here. So confirming we're having issues over on our Facebook there. So if you're not able to find us, we got other pages up on Facebook, such as the Andrew J. Polk page. But there are, of course, many things coming up, including what can be expected for the continuation of the trial of the indicted shooter in this case. Our news partners over at KFOX 14 do indeed have a timeline of where state and federal trials for the accused El Paso Walmart shooter get indicted, the technical term for the progression as the case has moved forward, of where it stands at this point. For the federal case, there is currently the district court judge has set the date for a January 8th, 2024 timeline. Federal prosecutors had wanted a trial to begin in 2023, while the defense requested a start date of 2025. And when the state trial currently is moving forward here, the date for that has not completely been set. And the federal charges against Cruces, again, the accused and indicted shooter in this case, do carry the death penalty or a lifetime in prison. And when it comes to the state case, some of the setting of those dates have been discussed as potentially summer of 2023. But of course, that case and the way that is progressing has had more than a little bit of controversy behind it, including the fact that we're unable to speak to either the prosecution or the defense in that case anymore after the judge in this case, Sam Medrano of the 409th District Court, has put a gag order on both sides in this. So we do know, most recently reported, of course, as we have discussed recently from El Paso Matters, among others, reporting on the fact that the El Paso DA has hired 2 new outside attorneys from other parts of the state in order to assist with that shooting case, as was being, well, widely discussed and expected in the lead up to it here. No further, of course, since these actions, these appointing of new attorneys and hiring of them are some of the latest actions that have happened in this case. So we are waiting to see what the next level will happen after that. Again, gag order was issued just last month. So with that, continuing to move forward, I mean, the last major thing that could be discussed was really that there was an additional $3 million in funding secured for the trial by District Attorney Yvonne Rosales. So as we await those movement forward and what could potentially come from it, a lot of anticipation, of course, in the community for that. I don't think anyone would have anticipated it would have taken this long to have moved forward with it, even in such a, I think you'd be hard-pressed to pick a more consequential case, at least in, I'm just going to call it living memory, in our area that has so much importance to the members of this community, so that it being able to move forward is going to be well closely watched and frankly crucial as we continue to see as the progression goes. Unfortunately, because of the way this has moved forward, we are going to be majorly looking at updates coming from either court hearings, any of these status updates, and any filings. That is going to be all we're going to be getting probably until the trial, at least when it comes to the state side of it. The major question remaining now of when a date may be able to be set. Again, the last public statements that were able to be made on this from the district attorney was that of summer of next year. Whether or not that can actually be maintained or what the actual outcome will be remains to be seen. So just a few of the major considerations as we commemorate today. We'll be talking a little bit further in this hour with our news partners over at KFOX 14 about the many events, commemorations, and even things coming up this evening in honor, of course, of the victims of August 3rd. Difficult day for many in our community. I remind myself of being out there on that day. We had been, our show was actually on Saturdays at that time, and as we got off air at about 9 o'clock that morning, finished with the program there, off by 10, was preparing for a day of work myself and more of the events that we hold out in the community, out at some of our clients, that kind of a thing, and got the call that something was happening. And could I please end up going there to see what was happening? And as more information came in, we started going live from that site, doing a, frankly, for our local station group here with iHeartRadio, mildly unprecedented, as we were able to then bring you coverage on all of our stations and bring you live updates from the site, including from the first responders. Many pictures I took on that day still mildly haunt me, of essentially every law enforcement agency with a badge out on that site as part of the response here. So my employment to you all out there, able to listen here, even if we're not up on quite all of our social media outlets, is, of course, to, on a day like today and this week particularly, consider maybe an act of kindness, act of grace towards those near to you and around you. Because, yeah, the impact that this can have, particularly on a day like today, is significant. We're going to go ahead and take that first break of the hour here right now. Coming out of this break, again, talking with our news partners over at KFOX 14 about some of the events and commemorations going on today, as well as some of the other important in-depth stories going on in and around our region. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso traffic, I-10 eastbound at Loma Land, right lane is blocked with some tire debris. I-10 westbound at Mesa, watch for a crash on the I-10 westbound at the Mesa Street exit with police still on the scene. Border Highway, westbound at Zaragoza, right shoulder is blocked by a white semi. An injury accident northbound Wrestler at Red, and a crash reported Donovan Drive at Sunland Park. Gary Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
In the start of the 1948 election, President Truman was down in the polls. After attending the national plowing match in Iowa, he eventually won the state and another term in office. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton.
And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean.
So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
Hey, hot dogs, sausages.
Maybe instead of using a stadium vendor to feed the office, we should have just ordered through EasyCater.
I got nachos here. Nachos?
Yeah, right here. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was fun at first, but it is kind of disruptive.
Cheesesteak here. Who wants a cheesesteak?
Over here.
Coming at you.
Oh, right in the face.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but EasyCater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at EasyCater.com.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Andrew J. Polk or Talk El Paso, whichever your favorite platform is. We're on those places to make it the most accessible to you all, because you can, of course, comment on most of those as well. Sure, Twitter's more of the DM kind of thing, but in any case, a lot of comments coming in already about our subjects of the day, and we'll get back to those more. But we are, of course, joined here in studio right now by Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners over there at KFOX 14, as we are most Wednesdays. Thank you very much for coming back to check in with us here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely happy to do so, because, I mean, a lot of serious and long-term reporting issues going on here today. Of course, today is August 3rd, and the importance of what that means for this community and the commemorations going on to it, very particular, and a focus of a lot of y'all's coverage today, including events having already gone on today and more to come up this evening, right?
Yeah, so starting really since yesterday and earlier this week, the city and the county have had several events just in remembrance of the victims of August 3rd. This morning, there were several events as well. We've had our reporters at the Healing Garden, at Ponder Park, at the Candela, and that's the coverage that we're expecting to have throughout the day as well. I know the employees at the Walmart, at the Cielo Vista Walmart, held, their moment of silence and their gathering at the Candela this morning. The city held a sound bath session yesterday, which is supposed to help people just get those emotions that they probably have been keeping, inside, just let that out. We've spoken with a lot of doctors and mental health professionals who have said that sharing, just your memory of what happened that day, maybe what you were feeling, what you remember is healthy. That helps people, let that out, and in turn just helps, I guess, with the whole process of healing, and we do have a lot of those resources posted on our website as well as all the other events that are happening throughout the day. I think we're ending with luminarias at one point in the day, as well as the star lighting today.
Yeah, of course, because some of those other things that are coming up here today, that the Luminata is also at Ponder Park from 7 to 9 p.m. today with El Paso Pro Musica playing a tribute with music at that point here. And visitors will also be able to write a message of encouragement and hope on the temporary memorial. Other events having gone on earlier today, as well as at Ponder Park. And then, of course, kind of one of the larger community-wide things that people will be able to see if they're in line of sight of the Star on the Mountain that will flash 23 times in honor of each of the victims here at 8:30 p.m. tonight. And, of course, everyone across the community is being encouraged to, if they want to light their front porches, yards, with candles, twinkle lights, luminatios, other lighting starting at 8 p.m. tonight. That will, again, be part of those community-wide things. And, again, part of the all coverage that you will all be having throughout all of your broadcasts this evening.
Right. I think different organizations are having different little commemorative events. I know EPISD this morning held a moment of silence at their schools. So we'll be seeing a lot of that today, of course, just honoring and remembering our victims from that shooting
as well. And again, people can see the full list of the timeline that we've gone over already in this program here today about, where the case stands and how things are progressing. And again, over on with our news partners there at KFOX14, KFOXTV.com, because, well, the one things and the way we focus on it, particularly on this program, is how things stand and where the progression is. I just kind of want to put it out there as we're talking about this, that there's no necessarily right or wrong way to go about this on your interactions, on what people go through and what they think and feel during these kind of times and these days, on when it can bring up a lot for people.
Right. And everyone expresses their grief differently. Definitely, there should be no judgment on something like this. It's something that, if anything, you should be coming together for, helping each other heal. And as you mentioned, we do have coverage of the timeline for the August 3rd shooter, and just what that timeline is for the federal case as well as for the state trial and where that stands. And so just recently, as of May of this year, District Attorney Yvonne Rosales, she secured additional $3 million in funding for the trial. In June, she had discussed that possibility of summer 2023 as a potential start for the state trial. And then in July, District Judge Sam Medrano had issued a gag order against both the prosecution and the defense. And so now the DA has hired 2 out-of-town lawyers to help in that case, the state trial.
So we won't be left, as we kind of said, entirely in the dark about this case, but statements coming out about it will be very perfunctory, if anything, and a lot of the kind of motions filings is what we'll be looking at this case and getting the updates on it going forward, as well as with anything happening in the courtroom here. Again, joining us here in studio, we do have a Stephanie Seifert, and investigative reporter with our news partners over there at KFOX14. You want to find out anything about her work, where you can find her previous reports and those kind of things, of course, KFOXTV.com, and just click under the KFOX14 Investigates tab. So, a lot of things going on there, and we'll, of course, continue to talk about them as is appropriate. But, of course, going on this week as well, very significant back to school for the majority of Borderland students here these days. It's kind of been on this slow rolling basis as some districts have changed their calendars over the last couple of years. So it's not all August 1st, but now pretty much all of them are, as of now, in session.
Right. So if it wasn't not last week, but maybe it was this week. So, at least around the same time. But yes, they're all now in session. And ahead of back to school, I know I had mentioned to you that I had been working all summer trying to get these stories out for parents who were probably a little hesitant after the Uvalde shooting, just with what security measures were in place at their children's schools. And so that's exactly what I did, is I went to every district in El Paso to ask what security measures have been put in place. Remember, a lot of these security measures that are in place at schools were a result of the Santa Fe high school shooting.
Right. And that was back in 2018.
2018, 2019 is when we started to see a lot of these changes to schools. Although it's taken many of them, from what I gathered, it's taken them years to implement, just because a lot of this technology is very expensive and it requires completely changing up these extremely old buildings. And so there's been a lot of work that, obviously, a lot of it can't be done during the school year. So they wait till the summer months to be able to move ahead with those improvements or upgrades. So that story aired last Monday. And so I also have another back to school related story that's going to air today as well.
Yeah, some of the security updates, of course, being talked about there, some that are very visible, such as, the security vestibules, the single point access kind of things, which involve revamping entryways or the way accessibility can even be done at a school. So it makes a lot of sense that it has to be done when the school isn't being used, because if it still needed to be, well, it can't be while that kind of construction and that work is going on. Of course, some of it can't be fully discussed here for security purposes, but the idea of it being happening and more of it being available is important for people to know as much as possible. And then, so again, the report you have coming out this evening then that people will be able to see on KFOX 14 News at 9, digging a little bit deeper into some of those requirements that came out of, again, the Santa Fe, Texas shooting and what happened there, and, well, essentially how local districts are in compliance with it.
Right. So I specifically filed open records requests to see if our local school districts are following the mandated requirement on lockdown drills at all of their campuses. And so not all of them were. And so that's what the report is on tonight.
Okay, again, catch that on KFOX 14 News at 9, getting further into, of course, all of the back-to-school coverage here. There's been a lot of it going on, many different aspects from you and your, colleagues as well, delving into these subjects here so people can catch that again in the report coming up tonight. KFOX 14 News at 9, and over then with the web story on KFOXTV.com. Again, guest right now here in studio is Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with KFOX 14. Again, all of her reports, KFOXTV.com, and then click under the KFOX 14 Investigates tab, or just search her up here. We'll have her contact information also over on our, social media and posted on the comment stream here shortly, but we got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll get a little bit more about some of the important and ongoing reporting coming up out of here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 36-year-old man was shot and killed by a Las Cruces police officer after an altercation at a gas station. This happened yesterday at a Chevron on South Valley Drive. According to police, a station employee called for help after two men entered the store, and one man is accused of stealing beer. Employees said that the man walked outside and started drinking the beer near fuel pumps. When officers arrived, there were three men sitting in a car drinking beer. According to police, a violent physical altercation took place where an officer shot the man, who died at the scene. An investigation is ongoing. Today marks a somber anniversary in the Borderland. 3 years ago, a gunman went on a deadly rampage at the Cielo Vista Walmart, killing 23 people and shooting several others. According to prosecutors, the gunman was fueled by racial hatred. Today, several remembrances are taking place throughout El Paso, including a ceremony at the county's Healing Garden at Ascarate Park. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our high pressure that has pretty much kept a lid on most of the storm activity has finally begun to move just enough to where there's enough moisture moving back, and that will increase our chance for some showers and storms, not only for this evening, but they could continue overnight, and we'll see another round of them again for tomorrow. But then afterwards, we'll start to slowly see rain chances decreasing. In the meantime, we're staying hot. Check out our latest on KFOXTV.com.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Dog days of summer got your business needing help? Check out Indeed, an all-in-one hiring solution that makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Sean Hannity here from my dear friends at Lone Star Transfer. I love these folks. You know, with all of us traveling so differently these days, timeshares, they're kind of becoming a thing of the past. Now, if you're stuck in one, you don't have to be. Our friends at Lone Star Transfer, they can help you. Now, with skyrocketing assessments and maintenance fees, still owning a timeshare is very risky. And for over a decade, Lone Star Transfer, they have successfully helped thousands and thousands of owners legally, permanently get out of their burdensome timeshare. They have an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Now, Lone Star Transfer is a family-owned company. They have earned their reputation for delivering first-class customer service. They're going to guarantee the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation, 833-594-0075. That's 833-594-0075 or online at LoneStarTransfer.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
In the start of the 1948 election, President Truman was down in the polls. After attending the national plowing match in Iowa, he eventually won the state and another term in office. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We are up in all of those ways, as to say, you can get at us, see the program, chime in as you can on most of those throughout the entirety of the show here, as well as see what's going on and our guests, as we are joined here again further in studio by Estefania Cipher, an investigative reporter with our news partners over there at KFOX 14. Thanks for sticking around with us as we check in as we do most Wednesdays.
Yes, of course.
So we were talking a little bit about some of the governmental actions and things going on that way, and of course we'll continue discussing them, but tax rates, tax setting season is going on right now. In a couple of different ways, of course, we have been having a lot of discussions about UMC, and there's also some things going on with the city. You've done a lot of work talking about what that whole certificates of obligation, the plan is, what the county thinks of it, and how UMC is going about it. And that's been ongoing now, particularly since we last talked, of them doing those outreach efforts that particularly the county was very interested in being more focused on letting people know what the plan is and how it would impact them. And so we've had at least one meeting already going on this week.
Right. So there was a meeting yesterday, and we had a reporter go and speak with the CEO, Jacob Cintron, and ask him, once again, why he feels that they need to take the route of certificates of obligation as opposed to a general bond, which would require the item to be on the ballot for voters to decide if UMC should get this money. And so he says that this was something that they wanted to do before the pandemic. We asked about the timing, of course, just why now? Why are we trying to get this done, now? And, typically certificates of obligation are used in an emergency.
Right.
And so we were asking, what is the emergency here that we need to use certificates of obligation as opposed to, having the voters decide? And so he says that it has to do with cost. He says that in the long run, he thinks that it will cost taxpayers more if we wait, because this is something that they wanted to do before the pandemic. Now they've had to wait. I know we're still in a pandemic, but at least it's slowed down from where we were 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so that's the reason he says that they're trying to do this now, especially because just the way that the economy is moving since then. And it's something that they want to get done also because they want to expand and meet the needs of the patients that they're seeing. They're saying that their capacity is very, they're getting to capacity. Basically, they need more beds. They need more of these resources, and they pride themselves in being able to offer these unique services to El Pasoans. And so when this was discussed in the commissioners meeting, there were two commissioners who were very adamant about the outreach and how it would be handled. And that was Commissioner Ileana Holguin and Commissioner David Stout. And so We did speak with Commissioner Ileana Holguin, who still thinks that this should be something that the voters decide on, not commissioners. And we've seen a lot of these community meetings in different parts of town, which is what the commissioners wanted. They wanted it to be very spread out so that people who had questions wherever they were at were able to attend these meetings and be a little more informed about what's going on. So there's still more meetings that are planned. I believe there's about 4 or 5 that are still going to be happening. I think the next one is happening tomorrow.
So again, the outreach happening there, and really, in my mind, it's coming down to 2 major points. One, that there is capacity need right now and kind of wanting to lock in costs right now. And that's the reason that this is being pushed for. But again, there are still some of the questions that remain because, among other things, commissioners could decide at the end of this process, as we are still in that countdown to essentially mid-September is when we're looking at for the end of that timeline, that fuse that's been lit, so to speak, here towards that point that commissioners could decide that. So that's why keeping an eye on this outreach effort will probably be important to see how it's even being talked about and the response coming from the community, as I am sure commissioners will be doing as well.
Right. And one of the things that Jacob Cintron mentioned to our reporter yesterday was that he says, people always focus on the impact to taxes, obviously, because that's what impacts them the most. But he says that UMC's slice of the tax dollar is so small that even with the increase that would come from these certificates of obligation, that they would still be the second lowest taxing entity in the county, is the way he phrased it and the way he explains it to people when they want to see how they're going to be affected by these taxes if this does get approved. Of course, like you mentioned, September 12th is the next meeting when they're expected to bring this up. And so then they would decide whether they approve these certificates of obligation or if it gets put on the November ballot. There is the possibility that it gets put on the May ballot just because it may be a little too tight to squeeze it into the November one.
I mean, there are timelines and times for setting the ballot coming up here shortly. So another reason we'll keep an eye on this. Again, guest right now here is Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners over there at KFOX 14 to find her reporting this worker, any of the things we're talking about, kfoxtv.com. And then particularly for her work, click on the KFOX 14 Investigates tab here. So as part of this fun tax setting season we keep focusing on here, we did, of course, have City Council having some of its discussions, continuing focus on their tax rate. There had been that half-cent reduction in the taxes per $100 of home valuation discussed previously, last month, really. And now they've, focused even more further on that, as we talked a little bit about, where they are focusing on now having it down another about, let's call it about 5 cents, 4.5 cents, technically looking at changing the tax rate downward, as there was, again, a statement sent out earlier this week.
Right. So the proposed budget updates for next year include a tax rate ordinance that would lower the tax rate to 86.24 cents per $100. With the new tax rate of 86.24 cents for a home valued at $100,000, homeowners would pay a proposed tax rate of $907. Currently with the tax rate $862. So the property tax rate would decrease from 90.7 cents to 86.24 cents.
These numbers get confusing.
They do get confusing.
And that's part of the reason also that statement that came out from the city on Monday. It may have been a better idea to have put it as a percentage change, because that might make it a little bit clearer for the average, taxpayer and those that aren't necessarily as up on what the tax rates are until they look at their end of year bill, essentially. And so some of the focus on this has also been on what they're doing with it. And of course, there's a little bit more process to go here. I mean, there are more hearings to come because the tax rate is also very much focused then on the budget and what can then be spent. Some savings being discussed along with this. Statements coming out from the city have been interesting. And so there's an August 16th public hearing coming up on it. And then August 23rd will be the actual adoption of the budget for fiscal year 2023 and the tax rate setting, the actual adoption of it at that point. So some of those critical days looking and coming up here. But it's also been interestingly noted, of course, a lot of conversations happening in and around what these tax rates are and how they compare. An interesting comparison was made to me, and others may have seen as well, that compared to 2019, the tax rate was, when it went up to that 90.7 points for $100 of valuation, that previously had been 84.33 cents per $100 valuation. So even with this reduction, we're not necessarily even at that 2019 level. A further point has been made.
Right. And I also property values have gone up. So just because we're seeing a decrease in the tax rate doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be paying less taxes necessarily.
And so, again, some of that focus has been kind of, think of an important part in probably contributing to this whole process, and why we will continue talking about it here. So I'm sure there are further plans to have even more coverage as we get closer to those other dates and those other city council meetings. You'll have full coverage of that, I am positive.
Of course. And I mean, for any background information, you can also find these stories that are already posted on our website. You can find these on the front page, but as you mentioned, for the more specific, detailed ones, they're under KFOX 14 Investigates.
Absolutely. So that's Stephanie Cipher, investigative reporter with our news partners over there at KFOX 14. We've mentioned it many times, but in case anyone wants to get a hold of you, mention some of these things and further investigations, particularly as we move past the start of school and a lot of focus you all have been having on that and getting into more of the drilling down into other topics in the community. How's the best way people can get a hold of you?
I would say email. So EYSEYFFERT@kfoxtv.com, and through social media as well.
And we'll have those links posted up over here too, of course, her Facebook, on our Facebook, and all the other social media outlets, and that email. So again, Stephanie, thank you very much for checking in with us and talking about all these things and all the many topics being investigated in our community, as we do most Wednesdays.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I hope you all are taking care of yourselves, especially on this August 3rd.
Absolutely here. So we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now and open up the phone lines as we do. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Giles, multi-vehicle accident involving 4 vehicles. A block in the right lane right now causing a backup back to Hawkins. Expect delays there. Gateway westbound at Yarborough, an accident reported. Stop and go traffic with 30-minute delays for you. Southbound on Global Reach between the Spur and Montana. And an injury accident in Edgemere Boulevard just outside the loop at Tierra Zafiro Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Don't drive much. Don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Some big news. Dick Morris's new book came out, and it says Donald Trump is running for president. And right after that, President Trump said it's not a matter of if, but when. You need to get Dick Morris's new bestseller, The Return, today. It reveals Trump's long-expected plan for 2024, his real reason for running, and his coming big surprise. Morris says Trump still might face 3 threats, including Hillary Clinton. And yes, Morris says she's running again. Newsmax says The Return is the book of the year. Already a #1 Amazon bestseller, The Return gives you Trump's plan. Big media, big tech, and the deep state want to stop Trump, but The Return shows Trump will triumph. Get Dick Morris's The Return in bookstores everywhere, or see the free offer from Newsmax and save almost $28. Just go to thereturn911.com. Thereturn911.com. That's thereturn911.com.
Red Pilled America is the best storytelling podcast in the country. This week we explore whether manufacturing jobs can ever come back to America by telling the origin story of the baseball cap. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of comments, a lot of heavy topics we're getting into here today, or otherwise just important ones, and a lot of commentary going on the many social media pages we're up on. Should be up on all of our Facebook pages now. Had a access glitch, apparently, which is way more detail than y'all need. All I need to know is that one of the reasons we put it out there in all the ways we do, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on those, in which case we have also posted up contact information, of course, for Estefania, Steve Ivey, I think, in reference to them, saying that y'all need a copy editor. I'm not going to say that you're exactly right or wrong, but it's not exactly, it's an open secret, basically, that copy editing has basically been outsourced to the purposes of, well, spell check. And the fact that spell check is feels a little bit more like autocorrect than anything these days, yeah, leaves a little bit to be desired. Would definitely prefer there to be a live, knowledgeable human being there. But some of the other comments coming in, particularly about the taxing issues. Sean Gardner saying all the local taxing entities are nickel and diming El Paso and taxpayers to death. Vote no on all bonds or propose tax increases. It's time to force all these tax entities to live within their means. Not quite related to that, but, well, not exactly unrelated either, is the fact that now we have actually seen that the charter amendment, that the charter amendment election, the one that we were talking about previously, that would include some of those issues, including potentially removing of the mayor's veto power, that climate change charter, all the various many subjects we've talked about that would impact taxing, probably in their own ways. That has actually been now moved unanimously by City Council this week until 2023, meaning it will not be on the November election, as we had previously said here. And usually tax changes, unless they hit that, I believe it's that 3.5% rate, that would be a change in revenue, which I don't think any of the local entities are even flirting with at this point. That's the only way it would automatically end up on the ballot here, that rollback tax rate. Having confirmed that after we had a little bit of confusion on that yesterday, I wasn't 100% certain, much more certain today that is indeed the current way that rate works. You often hear more about it from the county, at least when I covered the county in any case. So some of that stuff, yeah, could end up on the ballot, but not necessarily going to immediately. And some of the other commentary going on here, Calvin Williams, similar sentiment, 1,000 low tax entities make for one big tax. And Kathy Codry on the YouTube saying similar, no more burden on the property taxpayers. Taxes are sky high right now. The rates, definitely about that. And Steve Ivey had also commented about revamping of entryways and posting up a link to issues with the highway. You may have slightly misunderstood the entryways we're talking about here, not on-ramps, but rather the physical entry, like the doorways into some of these buildings here. If I'm misunderstanding that, then we have maybe a double misunderstanding. In any case, I mean, eminent domain and use of that, sure, there are issues that may be to be brought up there, but yeah, it's a little bit different than I think you're talking about there. But then, of course, a lot of comments came in, as we talked right about at the top, about August 3rd and remembering the victims there. I tend to get a little emotional about that myself here. RJ saying that I lived in Plano, went to high school there long before the shooter. I saw the racism that influenced him, and I pray that men's hearts would see our commonality, and adding on, not our differences. Can certainly agree with that sentiment. I mean, content of character, etc. But then more than a couple of comments coming in about, well, the progression of the case here, including Jay Visconti saying, so we need millions and millions in years to convict a mass shooter, yet the, I think he meant Uvalde, typo there, a mass shooting was buttoned up before the victims had even been laid to rest. All victims deserve due process and a thorough understanding of those tragic days. That's what I certainly hope will happen as any outcome of this case, as much as you could hope for one. Of course, the outcome of Uvalde being a little bit different, at least in the circumstance of what happened with the, I'm not sure if accused works in that case, deceased in that situation, and the one not being in that category here, the trial does have to proceed. So different circumstances, though. I think many of the initial questions don't necessarily a lot of doubt left in local or particularly those paying attention to it, viewers, wherever they may be on that situation, even though there is some. Ed Clore asking me a little bit earlier if I remembered when the story first broke and it was still live. They reported 3 men in custody, then immediately changed to no, just 1 in custody. So if he remembers it, then I know I do. So I do not remember them talking about 3 in custody. I do remember that there being, even the day of, there was even a tweet out from the El Paso Police Department about there being 2 shooters reported at the time here. And I also, at that time, to our gathered here, we were still at the station, among other things, kind of setting up plans, reconnoitering, making the plans as we needed to for our coverage that day. Some of the things being said, and one thing I said very clearly, I remember, is that the fact that the police said it is one level, but that I would be incredibly surprised if that ended up being the case, because as has been the situation before, not that I've reported directly on a number of these incidents, but having been previously, in journalism and news and media for years, there have been previous circumstances where breaking news situations from other localities would sometimes come and end up in our newscasts and our production and such here. The amount of confusion that happens in a situation like that, I think, can only be truly understood by those that have either been, essentially in war zones, because honestly, it may seem like it's an easy thing to know what sounds or doesn't sound like a gunshot or where it's coming from. But honestly, it is actually a very difficult task, something that takes training to be able to identify it truly, because your senses betray you. Echoes and the reverberation of sound can make it sound like, because there were also on the same day people concerned that there were shots being fired within Cielo Vista Mall itself, which ended up not being the case. But the way the sound moved and people were hearing it and reacting to it, I'm not saying they were unreasonable at that time, but it ended up not being the case there that day. So there was a lot. Even I remember on that day, people were concerned that there may have been something happening out in Horizon City, did not bear out. Panic spreads, simply put. And the way people react to it can often be influenced by the reactions of those around them, even if their senses may not be betraying to them to such a level. So I don't even disagree with your search for truth and understanding in this matter, but also understanding that even eyewitnesses can be misunderstanding of what they see. Memory, among other things, is a fallible thing, but even those immediately after, because you also mentioned a report coming out seeing people in black, that kind of thing. Honestly, I'm not surprised that people were reporting that at that point in time, but as of this moment, I have no concrete reason to disagree with or dispute the facts as they have been established so far and have been put out. If there is a reason to, you can be sure that we will talk about it, and why. Another comment that came in that I am not going to put up on screen. I do not think this community or anyone affected by this incident is all served by wild speculation or putting of other agendas into this. I will decry it any way that it comes, of saying that political statements and agendas that are being pushed onto such an incident is in poor taste at best, and beyond that, trying to put larger goals or purposes that do not make sense and are not a part of this. I take very poorly. I look on them very dimly and do not find them a reason. The search for truth is, of course, important here, but wild speculation such as false flag being mentioned here in one of our comments that I am not going to put up on screen. We're not banning anything. I think the comments stand on their own, and if we ever do ban anyone, we make that perfectly clear. But as much as you may see something there, Occam's razor, among other things, is something I find very useful looking at situations, trying to divine what has happened. But just wild speculation saying that, well, I clearly see the truth that none of you else can see. It's almost a drug, the way it is. The saying that I can see something that no one else can see gives you a level of power and feeling of it. And you know what? If the facts bear it out, sure, I'm often willing to talk about it. But as I was there that day and saw what happened in the hours afterwards, and as things unfolded, baseless commentary about who was there already on site doing those kind of things, I do not find useful. And particularly as we are on, hopefully before too long, the movement toward a trial on this, giving signal boost to that, I do not find useful either, as I always will, and will through the continuation and ultimate judgment of this trial, be focused on doing what I can from this limited position that I do find myself in making sure that it can continue on and is able to do so and truly provide the justice that the victims, the survivors, and the community at large needs out of this case. So with that, we're going to go ahead and hit that next break right now. Again, heavier day than usual, it freely feels like, but we will take some calls if you want to chime in on the line here, as well as more commentary over on our social media. Should all be up now. If you have any questions about where we're up, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Otherwise, taking that break for the end of the hour and the news break at the top of the next hour, but back on the line after this. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We have a lot to talk about and a lot of things we'll continue to get to after this break, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. The number one more time this hour, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound, a four-car crash at Giles Road exit. It's causing a backup and some problems. Right lane is closed, and you got a 10-minute delay with a backup back to Airway. Global Reach southbound is slow and getting slower from the spur down to Montana Avenue with 30-minute delays right now. In the lower valley on Loop 375 southbound at North Loop Drive, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Did you know audio memory lasts 6 times longer than visual memory? That's why businesses advertise with iHeartMedia, the #1 audio company in the country. Reach consumers with radio, podcasting, streaming, and more. Make your business a household name and visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO. Grow your reach, grow your business. Call iHeartMedia today. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO.
At One Day University, we feature hundreds of top-rated professors from Stanford, Harvard, Michigan, Texas, UCLA, and other schools across the world to explore history, music, politics, art, science, and much more. Every Wednesday, our weekly scholar newsletter includes short video clips of our most notable professors discussing fascinating topics, plus special reports and intriguing debates. Sign up for free at onedayu.com. That's ONEDAYU.com.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690. It's KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook.
President Biden is promoting a new executive order that aims to safeguard access to reproductive health care, including traveling across state lines for abortions. Speaking at the White House, Biden said the recent Supreme Court ruling overturning abortion rights has unleashed chaos in the U.S. The White House is happy about ongoing declines in gas prices across the U.S.
Gas prices are now down 86 cents a gallon from their June peak, saving American families with two cars on average over $90 a month.
During a briefing, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said most areas of the country are now seeing prices below $4 a gallon. She stressed that the U.S. government will continue pressing global oil markets to lower prices even further. Indiana Republican Congresswoman Jackie Walorski has been killed in a car crash. The death of the 58-year-old representative was confirmed by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. The crash killed two of Walorski's staff members near the city of Napanee, located just outside Fort Wayne. House Minority Whip Steve Scalise tweeted that Walorski was a dear friend who loved serving the people of Indiana. Phil Mickelson and a handful of other pro golfers are suing the PGA over their suspensions for participating in the Rival Live Tour. Lisa Taylor reports.
The golfers filed an antitrust lawsuit Wednesday challenging their PGA suspensions that keep them out of the FedEx Cup playoffs. The Saudi-funded Live Golf League is giving pro golfers big signing bonuses to play in its new league.
A top Republican Southeast Texas congressman believes one of his constituents is illegally being held in Russia. Congressman Kevin Brady tells ABC News he wants David Barnes released and returned to the U.S. Barnes was arrested on child abuse allegations by Russian authorities in January. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Georgia Governor Kemp has extended the state's suspension on motor fuel sales and has renewed efforts to address supply chain issues. Rosia Rivera has more.
Gas in Georgia will continue to be some of the lowest in the nation thanks to Governor Kemp's extension of the temporary gas tax suspension. Kemp has also renewed the state of emergency for supply chain disruptions. His office released a statement saying his administration is working to combat the economic headwinds caused by the president's failed policies. Georgia's average gas price has consistently remained one of the lowest, and according to AAA, is currently about 45 cents below the national average for a gallon of regular gas. I'm Rosia Rivera.
Health risks posed by COVID are causing more smokers to quit. A new study from the University of California, San Diego said regular smokers purchased much fewer cigarettes and a considerable amount quit during the pandemic. There's more funding for construction of a new hip-hop museum in the Bronx. Lisa G. reports.
Mayor Adams praised the New York hip-hop artist he listened to for giving him the confidence he has today.
Because I watched them with a level of confidence as they perform.
The new funding of $5.5 million, $2 million of which was contributed by Adams, will help build the 52,000 square foot museum. Construction of the museum and attached affordable housing is slated to be completed in the fall of 2025.
State environmental officials are trying to locate and capture a bear that broke into the same Connecticut house twice last week. The first break-in happened July 25th, and conservation police told the homeowners to close the main doors of the house for a week. The bear returned on July 31st and forced its way through a screen door and was chased back outside by the homeowner. Environmental officials are setting traps in hopes of capturing the bear and transporting it to a safe location. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
September 23rd and 24th.
T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas.
Stream it free on the CW app and CWTV.com. And get ready to win your way there starting Monday.
Brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch to the network with more 5G bars in more places so you can experience your music whether you're streaming from home or from the front row. Plus, customers can get closer to the festival with VIP access. Only from the leader in 5G coverage. T-Mobile.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Country music star John Rich just released a new single called Progress, where he calls out woke ideology. Don't miss John Rich and don't miss The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday, every Thursday, and all throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org. M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
This is Alec Baldwin. I'd like to invite you to listen to my new limited series podcast about a true American hero who lived to tell the story of his imprisonment by the Japanese during World War II.
I'm kind of proud of the fact that I'm a survivor. I wouldn't want to go back through it, but I wouldn't trade it either. It changed my life completely.
Listen to Ben Steele American on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary going on over on the social media, and if I seem a little bit glib at the moment here, because I just got some very good news. We'll not have to report for jury duty tomorrow. So there were some replacements, some contingencies being put in place for tomorrow in case that had dragged on. So now you'll never get to hear them. Maybe we'll put them up as a blooper reel someday, because definitely putting together, trying to explain how if I didn't make it back in time, but we're here, we're live right now, and again, now confirming we will definitely be live tomorrow, and some of the considerations coming on over on the social media, including Kathy Codry over on the YouTube commenting, we have to budget $500 per month to make sure we'll be able to pay our property taxes. RJ responding to that, saying, hear you, Kathy, the appreciation is great if you're investing, sucks if you're not and paying for the extra value. Yeah, and kind of the annoying thing, and as I'm getting baptized into the knowledge of things like escrow accounts, home mortgage, PMI, all that kind of stuff, refinancing potentials, yeah, the annoying thing about a property investment is that you don't, unless you're like renting it out, you don't get the value out of it until you sell it. So, yeah, that's a little bit of an issue there. And some more of the commentary coming in that I do appreciate here. Maria Coleman saying that humans naturally seek an answer to the unacceptable. There may never be answers or reason for illogical actions. Even if there was a determination or answer, will never be sufficient. The victims' loved ones will always remember and question. God watch over them. Can definitely find myself agreeing with that. And Steve Ivey also, El Paso, strong hashtag with that, with multicolored hearts there. Do appreciate that. Doesn't show up that well on radio, of course, but if you want to leave your comments over on the social medias, we have some more and more chiming in over there on the social media, including Calvin Williams, Steve Ivey, Louis Pinato, Ed Clore, Jay Visconti, and more, and dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate, including Steve Ivey, Calvin Williams, Sarah Everett, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Well, we got a lot more commentary that we'll keep getting to there, but we, of course, also have that phone line open as we do during this point of the show. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Got a couple calls on the line here we'll get to right now. Right now, we do have Frankie over in Mesilla on the line with us. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right out of the box. Let me just say to you and everybody else out there, this is a gloating call. You put this in a cubby hole. Gloating call. I want to say and share with all you people out there that a bunch of normal thinking Kansasans out there voted the correct way and knocked out all these nut job conservative evangelical nut jobs. Good for them. I think that's wonderful. And this is going to be a preamble, if you will, of what's going to happen in November. Because I think these all smarty pants conservatives who think they know what's going on are going to get it stuck right back in their face come November. Because people are ticked. There's another word I want to use, but this is a family radio program. But they're ticked. So that's gloating number one. Number two, I got my second $500 check from our great governor here in this land of enchantment over here. This is supposed to help me out for gas and everything else. Now, to get that stuff, you got to pay state income taxes. Now, you Texans, you don't do that. So guess what? You're not getting $500. Now, what do you think of that? That's what I want to say.
I mean, you kind of set up on that last point there. The fact that you've got to pay the state income taxes to get the money back, which I'm going to assume wasn't the amount that you paid in state income taxes to begin with here. And sure, I think a lot of people out there, frankly, wouldn't have as much objection to taxes if they liked what was happening to it. And getting your money back might be a decent way to do it. But then it also raises the question, why take the money in the first place? Just leave it to the people and don't do this essentially, particularly those who are overestimating on they're still paying like payroll taxes, among other things. If they overestimate how much they are, but they get it back in a tax return, they've essentially given an interest-free loan to the government for that period of time. So, yeah, I'm sure. If you're happy with it, I'm happy for you, I guess, as much as can be. But would also wonder, like, okay, if it's just, a revolving door, why did we have to bother with it in the first place?
All right, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. I heard all that stuff. All right, yes, it's an aggravation. You have to pay any kind of tax. But at least, even though it was more taxes than what I paid for sure that I got back, but I don't care. I thought just a gesture from our great governor, not to be confused with your nut job Abbott Costello guy, you ain't getting nothing back from him. All right, I pay taxes, but I'm getting something back. So I'm a very, very happy camper. That's what I want to say. You can talk all you want about what you just said, but at least I got something back, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Well, I'm happy that you're happy, and I hope you use it wisely.
Oh, you better believe it. I'm buying extra beer every day now.
I was going to guess, but didn't want to assume anything. But, well, let's just say that my assumptions seem to be correct here.
You got it, Andrew. You take care.
You have a good one there, too. Appreciate the point in the call. Right. Have a great one there. I mean, yeah, sure. If whatever floats your boat, though, I think there are some finer points to be made about taxation, the way it's formulated. I mean, as much as we are talking about some of these, tax rates and the issues within our local area, I can't imagine what the fight would be in Texas if we also had the income tax and those levels. I know that it's probably never going to happen. Well, knock on wood, never going to happen in the state of Texas, there being an income tax, though I guess never say never in politics these days. But sure, if you like the way it works out for you, more power to you. Though I think, again, a lot more people will be saying, okay, why do we even have it formulated this way in the first place? Honestly, I think New Mexico has found itself in a decent position where they have been getting a lot more focus on the energy sector and some of the other trying to production here. RJ recommended me try not to make sense of things like this, but hey, I guess it's my prerogative and what I'm always inclined to do, sort of try to make sense out of the insensible sometimes. But yeah, sure. If you want to do it, whatever. If that makes you want to move to New Mexico, honestly, if that's really your consideration, Alaska, well, if you live there, I think it's at least 2 years. It might be more than that. I mean, they've got the whole Alaska dividend that comes out, and you get several, I want to say it's at least several $1,000s per year to live up there. Then, of course, the cost of living there are pretty astronomical. So it could also be seen as a bribe to get people to move to that state. But sure, if that's what we really want to do, and I'm sure they have beer up there too. Anyway, let's get to at least one more call on the line here before we hit that next break. Again, phone line's open. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Some of the commentary coming in similarly. Here's Jesse Garza saying, happy got his money back. Now New Mexico will tax him on that. I mean, yeah, again, revolving door for the money is not a great plan here, but at least one more call. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, obviously what happened 3 years ago was the worst thing that's ever happened in El Paso history, at least in my lifetime and probably in the history of this community. My wife was at Cielo Vista Mall when the shooting took place, and she saw people running and yelling through the mall thinking that there was a shooter down at the first floor. A good friend of mine's aunt, her aunt's husband was murdered there. Another friend of mine was in the store when the murders take place. My cousin has a friend whose cousins were the young couple that was murdered there, leaving an orphan. And still another friend of mine was at the Sam's gas station filling up when it all happened. So again, the worst thing that's ever happened in this community as a result of an assault weapon in the hands of a Trump-incited and ignited racist, xenophobic terrorist. And then look at the violence Trump incited on the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. 5 people died there as a result. And here are some of the tragic statistics from the developed world's most violent country, a country where no one is safe anywhere, anytime. Times six is how many more people are killed when an assault weapon is used. 54%, more than half of the mass shootings are as a result of domestic violence. And we've had 9 mass shootings since the El Paso shooting, resulting in 79 more deaths, including the children murdered in Uvalde and the people in Buffalo murdered at the supermarket. What a country, huh? Isn't that great? Isn't that something to be proud of? You know, I put the blame on this on the Republican Party and the Republicans in Congress who have violated their mission statement, as stated in the preamble of the Constitution, to ensure domestic tranquility. We are far, far, far from that today. We're on the verge of guerrilla civil warfare, I think. And to provide for the general welfare, they have failed us in this. All they want is tax cuts for the rich and deregulation of industry, and it has not served the interests of the majority of the American people. That's why the people are so upset, and they look for somebody to blame it on, and Donald Trump was a demagogue that put the blame on immigrants or on Muslims or on liberals or on the press. And this is what happens to a people who suffer from a minority-ruled government, as we do in this country, and the best politicians that the arms manufacturers can buy. Now, I have one question for you as I go. How much time must it last before this incident will be a topic on the El Paso History Show?
That's honestly not a question I was expecting to come out here. I know we've had some focus on it, particularly in the immediate aftermath. Honestly, just considering it here, I truly have not given thought to that particular idea or an issue here. I'm going to say just probably flat out, unless there is something incredibly specific, such as maybe a memorial garden or something like that, even though that at this point in time falls more into the realm of the El Paso Public Forum, which airs Sunday mornings on all of our local iHeartRadio stations. Just conceptually, at this moment, as you're putting it to me, considering it for the first time, probably not until the trial is over. Let's just be honest. I know that a lot of information and direct speakers about this probably won't be available to that. We have made overtures in the past to, and on previous anniversaries, towards, say, the police department, other local involved agencies, and pretty much mum's the word in order and in deference to the ongoing trial and the potential, continuation of this. So, until further notice, I guess that's my consideration on it. Probably not until the trial is over, including any kind of set of appeals here. Anyway, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it, even if there was a lot more there that I will disagree with. I guess that was an interesting question to consider here, however much these kind of things can be done. I mean, we got to, I think, essentially think of it in documentary terms. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will get to more of the calls on the line, more of the commentary, and a whole lot more that we will get to here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, if you want to get your 2 cents on the line, do have some space available if you get quick with it. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, a 4-car crash at I-10 eastbound at Giles has caused a pretty big backup of stop-and-go traffic, 15-minute delays, mostly stopped from Geronimo to Giles Road. Global reach. Keep talking about this, but southbound between Liberty Expressway and Montana Avenue, it is 35-minute delays. And the 10 westbound at Vinson, there's a stalled semi-block on the right shoulder. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Some big news. Dick Morris's new book came out, and it says Donald Trump is running for president. And right after that, President Trump said it's not a matter of if, but when. You need to get Dick Morris's new bestseller, The Return, today. It reveals Trump's long-expected plan for 2024, his real reason for running, and his coming big surprise. Morris says Trump still might face 3 threats, including Hillary Clinton. And yes, Morris says she's running again. Newsmax says The Return is the book of the year. Already a #1 Amazon bestseller, The Return gives you Trump's plan. Big media, big tech, and the deep state want to stop Trump, but The Return shows Trump will triumph. Get Dick Morris's The Return in bookstores everywhere, or see the free offer from Newsmax and save almost $28. Just go to thereturn911.com. Thereturn911.com. That's thereturn911.com.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward and master 5th grade math.
I can't do this. It's impossible.
Not you, Dad, your daughter. Staples will help her move forward.
Right.
Right now, Staples 1-subject notebooks are just 35 cents each. Plus, select backpacks are 50% off. Everything on your list at amazing prices. Staples, we're not going back. We're going forward to school. In-store only backpack offer ends 8/6. Notebook offer ends 8/27. Limit 30.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See, we didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and a lot of commentary back and forth. Big on the last callers here, but again, one of the things that I like about our format is that no point stands out there as incontrovertible or uncontestable. So if you want to chime in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If I seem a little out of breath, I just sprint down the hall to let someone in who was locked out. So pardon me for that for a second. But a lot more comments coming in here, including James Radcliffe, Maria Coleman, Kathy Codry, RJ a little bit earlier, EFR over on the Twitch stream. A lot of ways, of course, that you can get at us and make your comments on here, including KF Green with another one on the idea of crime impacts on gun violence rates and things like that. Often a part of the conversation. And as much as I said it in the previous hour with a very differently tenored comment, the idea of, from an incident like this, trying to take essentially political goals out of it is just, well, the word I'll use right now is distasteful, even if there might be other ones that I would prefer to use in, let's just call it a non-radio company. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Brian on the west side here with us right now. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in that last caller's just absolute hatred and his spewing of lies, and he's got Trump derangement syndrome, and that causes people to not be able to see what actually happened, which is the guy that came in here from out of town was a racist and needs to be dealt with by the law as best as we can. Hopefully to put him away for forever, to never bother our society again. But to sit there and just try to go into how it's Trump's fault, and it just drives me insane, because the real cause of it isn't the gun that he used. It's the fact that some deranged kid on psychotropic drugs came into our town and shot up a place. And that's what we need to concentrate on. To let someone like that divide us, we need to unite and say we just don't allow that as a people. We don't allow that.
Absolutely. And I think if they're calling it a positive outcome out of any of this, feels cheap at best. But if there could be something that comes out of this, an actual honest discussion about those underlying things and how they have or don't have a place in our society. But I have often found that leaving things unaddressed, festering in the dark corners where people don't like to look, is, well, how we get into some of the situations I think we are right now, and which is why we are committed to talking about it and taking the calls that we do. So I appreciate your point and appreciate your call.
Hello, am I still on?
Yeah, we still got you.
Yeah. Hey, so yes, and I agree with you on that. And the fact of the matter is, what we really need to start looking at is mental illness and what effect that has on the violence that's been going on in our country. We have lost our way somewhere in the mix, and we just need to kind of come back together as a people and reunite.
Absolutely. We'll definitely agree with you on there. And as a note, a lot of resources are available, including a very simple way to get at it now, 988, dialable from any phone here in the continental United States, at the very least, for that mental health crisis and suicide lifeline. Again, 988, in the same category as 911 is these days. So again, appreciate your point and your call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much there. Again, if you want to get on the line here with us as well, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. RJ told me to get in shape. Look, wasn't planning to sprint all the time. I wasn't limbered up or anything. In any case, we get a lot more subjects and points on here. Ida Beza Gardner saying raining in the Canutillo area right now. And in fact, our news partners over at CBS 4 and KFOX 14 actually saying that small but strong storm cell has actually prompted a flood advisory in parts of Doña Ana County, looking kind of just south and kind of southeast of Las Cruces as of the last half hour. And there's actually that flood advisory in effect until at least 7:15. So stay safe out there, particularly if you're driving around in the area. One of those comments here, I wanted to at least mention it here. Kay Green saying, I would like to see Raul take all the guns away from all the gang members first. He must not realize that gang members and others are able to get guns even if all guns were taken away. He can't go 5 minutes without complaining about President Trump. Trump lives rent-free in his head. I think there's probably a golf course in there about now by this point here from how much space is being taken up, among other things. But we got a lot more commentary we'll get to here, including more phone calls on the line here. We do have D, I believe, on the east side with us right now. D, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. I wanted to comment on Frankie. I never thought I would agree with him, but when he started saying that he knew family members or friends that were murdered, I was agreeing with him. And then he went off the rails. I want to start insisting that we don't call people shooters. Why can't we call them murderers like he said? I'm a shooter, and that's then you go off saying you're shooter gives us a bad name. We did we kill somebody, we murdered somebody. You can kill somebody with a bat. You don't go around calling them a batter. Somebody who's DWI, usually he was driving while intoxicated. He drove his vehicle and killed somebody. We don't call him a driver that kills somebody. We need to start getting that word shooter. Well, a shooter is a lot of people. A golfer, you can't blame a golfer. You could use a golf club to murder somebody. We're going to call him, he will golf to death with a murder. We need to stop saying shooters. When you say somebody went into the house and shot the people up, why can't we say he went into the house and murdered people? Just like Frankie said. I was agreeing so much with him, I couldn't believe it. I never thought I would agree with him. Every time somebody's killed is murdered. It's not the object. It's the person that does the damage, the harm, and kill someone. That's all I wanted to say, sir.
No.
And please, if we can start saying shooter, say murder, killer, or any other term, but not the object. The object, not what's doing the damage. It's the person. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it there as well. It's an interesting point to be made because, yes, of course, the outcome of this is a murder. I don't feel like that is a point that is not particularly controvertible as the outcome of the action here. Let me just say, from my experience being in different newsrooms, different journalistic outlets, those kind of things over the years, there's often I've encountered anyway, almost a mysticism. It's not quite the right word, but a mythological nature practically whenever it comes to this subject, talking about firearms and things like that, where it's sacrosanct also isn't the right word, but it approaches that level of the thought that kind of goes into it and the way words are often used. And even when there were times before this, when I was having conversation with colleagues about particularities about, say, other incidents or in other cities and states, and the kind of lack of specificity that, well, it's just a general term, and how the actual technical nature wasn't understood, it often frustrated me. And which is why one of the reasons that I've pursued that knowledge myself, getting certifications, experience when I can, and will also say that, yeah, I mean, as much as it may be a cliche these days, guns don't kill people, people kill people. I mean, I'm not finding much fault with the phrase there either, because seriously, it is the intent of the person that guides the action of the object. And I mean, that's not even arguable. Sure, there may be an argument to be made about ease or accessibility, but seriously, evil purposes often find their way whether or not it is available or not. Should there be maybe revampings and particularly closing of some of the serious legal loopholes whenever it comes to, like, say, the quick NICS or the fix NICS bills that have been coming through? Yeah, probably. We saw at least one come close to our community with the Sutherland Springs, the church there where the person went in there and had been previously stationed at Holloman, and based on his actions at Holloman should not have been able to purchase anything and yet was able to. There's a lot of issues here, but again, directly connected them with the incident themselves is, very frustrating, because we should talk about these things. Make no mistake, you're never going to find me saying, no, we can't talk about that. That is, again, that's another way you can know I've probably been kidnapped in my cry for help if I ever start saying things like that. But to then say, and because of this incident, and then using distasteful, again, is the word I'm going to continue to use, even if James Radcliffe, I think, suggested disgusting as well. Anyway, there's some more discussion going on that too. We got to take that next break right now, overdue already, but we got more calls on the line and we'll keep getting to them. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 36-year-old man was shot and killed by a Las Cruces police officer after an altercation at a gas station. This happened yesterday at a Chevron on South Valley Drive. According to police, a station employee called for help after two men entered the store, and one man is accused of stealing beer. Employees said that the man walked outside and started drinking the beer near fuel pumps. When officers arrived, there were three men sitting in a car drinking beer. According to police, a violent physical altercation took place where an officer shot the man, who died at the scene. An investigation is ongoing. Today marks a somber anniversary in the Borderland. 3 years ago, a gunman went on a deadly rampage at the Cielo Vista Walmart, killing 23 people and shooting several others. According to prosecutors, the gunman was fueled by racial hatred. Today, several remembrances are taking place throughout El Paso, including a ceremony at the county's healing garden at Ascarate Park. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the I-10 eastbound, that earlier four-car crash at Giles exit is still causing a backup. 8-minute delays from Trowbridge to Giles. Global Reach, that's over a 30-minute delay from the spur down to Montana Avenue. Joe Battle Boulevard's got two crashes, northbound at Edgemere, block of the left lane. and southbound at Rojas blocking the right lane. And watch for an injury accident southbound Dyer just before McCombs. Gary Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our high pressure that has pretty much kept a lid on most of the storm activity has finally begun to move just enough to where there's enough moisture moving back, and that will increase our chance for some showers and storms, not only for this evening, but they could continue overnight, and we'll see another round of them again for tomorrow. But then afterwards, we'll start to slowly see rain chances decreasing. In the meantime, we're staying hot. Check out our latest on kfoxtv.com.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Most World War II events have made their way into our history books, but for nearly half a century, the tragedy of the HMT Rona was kept secret. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Clown Parade is an anthology comedy podcast series presented by Will Ferrell, Bowen Yang, and Matt Rogers. Each month, hear a fresh comedic talent create a brand new podcast format hosted by an original character of their own creation in the spirit of the Ron Burgundy podcast.
What I want you guys to produce are multiple podcasts. It's one podcast called Clown Parade, a anthological character piece carefully curated by culturistas.
Listen to Clown Parade on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton.
And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean.
So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the Borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
With the Strawberry Frosty, time to enjoy yourself is built in. They're so rich and creamy, they're built for you to slow down, relax, and just take it all in. So when it's time for Frosty time, and Strawberry Frosty time is for a limited time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Strawberry Frosty.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And yes, we are up in all of those locations. In all those places, even if there was a little bit of a technical glitch, something about the monkeys in the engine room earlier, I don't know. In any case, we're up in all those places and the different variety of them in order to make it so that whatever works best for y'all, you can get at us in our continuing mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland here. A lot of commentary coming in on the very many points we're getting to today, including Flocka Jimenez, Kathy Codry, RJ, James Radcliffe, Sean Gardner, EFR, Ida Beza Gardner, Kathy F. Green, and more than I'm sure. Amelia Coleman a little bit earlier. And dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate. Sean Gardner, Steve Ivey, Calvin Williams, Sarah Everett, Flocka Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes here. Maria Coleman saying a little bit earlier that the responsibility for the shooting remains on the shooter. In Chicago, there have been hundreds shot and killed, mostly due to illegal handguns in that area. Illinois has some of the most stringent gun laws in the U.S. The violence is more complex than guns. I guess that is one of the slightly more frustrating parts whenever it comes down to that part of the conversation. Kathy Codry commenting right now that my guns have never killed anyone, neither have mine to my knowledge, and they rarely get out of the gun safe as it is for the most part, the vast majority of them anyway. So that conversation, like, it gets frustrating sometimes because particularly if you want to talk about the strictest real impacts of crime and that kind of a thing, I mean, sure, the incidents that happened here in El Paso, Uvalde recently, all those kind of things are eye-catching. They are horrific, and should by no means be tolerated by any means. But if that is what is being focused on, the larger picture is being missed. I mean, I know Chicago is often a lightning rod place to point to anyway, but it does belie a certain truth on what is actually the scale and scope and real issues when it comes to crime and gun crime specifically. Again, there were even incidents happening in our area where there were certain gun stores being targeted, items being stolen, and they weren't looking for the objectively higher value long guns. For the most part, they were stealing handguns, and not even necessarily the ammunition for it was one of the key things that came out of some of the police reports and releases on these things, because they were essentially implements of further crime. So, yeah, RJ is saying his guns kill cans and milk jugs. The whole shooting trash in the desert is very much a tradition out here. Just remember to pick up your mess when you're done. Leave it better than you found it if you can, even if that's not a prevailing sentiment out there. I know. James Radcliffe saying kind of accurately, I would say, when politics is involved, there is no place that is exempt from them stating their political agendas. Yeah. And Guthrie Codry, I had been hopeful about ammunition, but yeah, prices have been going back up in that direction as well. Very unfortunate for me and my wallet. Anyway, well, let's get back to the phone lines here again. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And a lot of more commentary coming in on these issues. But again, we have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. I was just listening to Raul's rant on guns.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided there'd be a pretty interesting thing to Google something just to find out have there's been any kind of statistics about how many people have actually been saved by people, a good guy with a gun against a bad guy with a gun. And there was an article in Newsweek about on July 19th. And he opens up with, of course, the Indianapolis shopping mall,
right?
Where that 22-year-old man who legally carrying and everything shot the attacker and saved a lot of people. There's also there was according to this guy's research, there have been at least 10 similar cases over the last year, and 21 since the beginning of 2020. And then he says also that, they've been trying to do research to find out whether or not there's any other things, but he says, my organization has reviewed 64 total cases, but it's difficult to dig up cases from further back since local news stories are likely to have disappeared from internet search results. And so, we're talking about, how many lives have been saved by good guys with a gun? How many lives in rural America have been saved because a family had a gun and people knew that they had guns, and therefore they weren't attacked in the middle of the night where they could be raped and killed? How many of those people have been saved from mass shootings? I'd like to ask Raul that. Okay, so, and I would venture to guess that if you unarm most of the people all the people in the United States, the only people who are going to have guns is going to be the bad guy. And those people are just going to take it on themselves to take whatever they want to, whenever they want to. So I'd like to ask him, what good does it do to take the guns away from good people?
I mean, that is often where I find myself, as much as, again, whatever we talk about these incidents are the ones happening here or elsewhere. I mean, there are certain factors that have to be identified that, yeah, we have a level, and maybe it's just talked about more, but I mean, any of them, no one is exactly in favor of these incidents as they happen. And so talking about what solutions could be are very important, and which is why whenever it comes down to particularly that point about just get rid of all of them, like, you know what, I would almost say, sure, if there was a magic wand that could truly be waved and make it so that, yes, these deadly implements are not available to literally anyone, that could potentially be a solution. But to pretend that when we're talking about any of these legislative efforts or these turn-ins or things like that, that they will accomplish that falls far short of that actual goal. and even just in the stats you're talking about there, it's long been a consternation about the fact that incidents resolved and not resulting in a shooting by the presence of a firearm are often go unreported, or even when they are, that's very difficult to tabulate those results. It's actually one of the reasons that I know it's not a particularly popular point, because it's often been held up in legislation, that I've been in favor of the idea of there being further study. I know there have been many amendments and a lot of politics involved in that, but the idea of there being more actual study into gun violence, gun crime, gun incidents, but making sure that it includes this set of data that you're talking about. I think getting the full idea of the full situation would be a very good thing. Now, whether or not that's also actually achievable might be debatable, as well as political goals and narratives could be very easily put on there. And of course, the whole, lies, damn lies, and statistics, things that come along with it. I would still like to have more data, particularly in that subset you're referring to there.
Yeah, wouldn't it be interesting? Why isn't it that, again, I'm going to rant against the Republicans. Why can't they do the research? This guy did the research. He came up with some very, very, very real statistics and everything. Why aren't they, online, or, on TV, media, everything, talking about these instances? I mean, it seems like it's a very, very valid argument against everything the Democrats are saying.
I guess I'm not terrifically surprised that it hasn't been the case. I mean, there's been a lot of consternation I frankly have had with national Republicans whenever it comes to gun laws and such, particularly during the last administration, and the lack of movement on it. It's a separate point than what you're making here, but just what comes to mind for me. But I mean, honestly, the simple fact is that reality rarely fits neatly into political narratives, and those looking at doing their own level of funding or action on it, the idea that it might not totally fit their narrative, but might be more complicated than that, I would have to assume, at least back in my mind is what I'm thinking, is why there hasn't been maybe that much movement or motion on it, because it might not perfectly fit what they want it to do, and therefore they've moved on to other things. But you can be dang sure that it'll come up during fundraising season, be brought up as no, we're totally fighting for this, and that kind of saying, oh, we just missed it this time, so you better support us next time, kind of thing that happens just way too often across the entire dang country, honestly.
And unfortunately, I'm going to have to conclude with this, and this is my conclusion, is that Republicans are basically cowards. They won't go against what the news is saying and everything else, because they won't get the votes if they do, and it's sickening. So anyway, let's go, Brandon.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day. Stay well, stay safe. God bless.
You as well there. I mean, these are, not simple narratives or issues to get into here, but I mean, honestly, you show me a politician that is willing to give up a good narrative and a good fundraising drive, and I'll show you one that probably either hasn't been in office long or isn't long for office much after that here. Anyway, getting back to, I think we got at least one more call we can get on the line here. Sean Gardner let us know it's raining near Red and I-10. Yeah, that storm did seem like it was moving south of Las Cruces and moving through Canutillo. So just stay safe out there. It looked like a doozy on the weather radar that I was pulling up here. So just stay safe if you're out on the roads here. Flocking Med is saying he thinks the dog was agreeing. Absolutely, if you think so. Here, and then we had Mondo Moncada saying a little bit earlier, Mondo, I think, not liking the way prescribing physicians, antidepressants, and drug manufacturers are. There might be some interplay there, but I'll also say it here that I think that more people getting access to mental health services is probably a good thing in the long run. And it's just as a reminder, 988, that national lifeline that is now available that anyone can call into, including local service providers, or if they're unavailable nationally, will be answered. 988. If you're finding yourself or anyone that your loved ones close to you, anything like that, are in need, please remember that 988. Okay, I think we have time for at least one last call. We do have a caller on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Johnny from Central. How you doing?
Doing right there, Johnny. What's on your mind?
I'd like to compliment on some of your calls. One thing, a bit of news. I'm kind of sorry to hear about the grandmother in New Mexico, I think, that was killed by the officer. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite sure that family wish they could have been able to reach out to get some mental assistance for her. I'm not saying that they didn't, but, feel sorry for them. But anyway, wanted to comment on some of your callers.
Absolutely.
The national conversation isn't about handguns. And a lot of us are, as one of your callers say, are shooters. And of course, I wasn't offended by the word shooter, but murderer, you're right. They go in and take human lives. They are murderers. But I keep focusing on the assault weapon because that's the one I think that it draws a lot of attention because they're very horrifying. And I think about the Las Vegas shooter, and I think about some of these other shootings that took place. And I think one of your callers said something about we've had 9 major shootings since our incident that happened here in our own town back in August of 2019. And in the gangs, I have family up in Chicago, they kind of roll their eyes every time I mention anything about shootings, because they say they get that every day. They have gangs that's shooting and killing every day, but that doesn't make the front page news for some reason, which it should. But I imagine the news media can only do so much. But I have a suggestion. I don't know if you can do it or not. On the weekend, you have on your station, Bruce Dumont, and he have a guest on, both sides of the aisle or whatever. I don't know if you can do that or not, but since I know you have 2 hours, it'd be nice if you could do that. Get some of the people here who have opposing views, and I bet you can draw a whole lot of attention around here in El Paso. You can get, I think, a gentleman, Raul, and the other gentleman from New Mexico, and a couple of other calls around here. I mean, they don't have to be screaming and yelling at each other. Just have some good points of view, back and forth. You'll be the referee, and I bet you that'll be very interesting 2 hours. What do you think?
Yeah, Bruce Dumont, the McLaughlin Report back in the day, those kind of shows I have enjoyed, and we've even had the ability to be on Bruce's show previously on occasion when we've talked about some of those issues, either the August 3rd shooting itself or some of the border issues we experience here. Been happy to be on that program and talk with him about it. Let me just say the infrastructure is a little bit different up there, and he's very well suited to that thing. I mean, people have been saying to this for years, frankly, the idea of there being more focus on this here. And the trick is getting people willing to discuss and not scream and shout. It's a little bit more difficult than it sounds. I mean, it's a nice sentiment, but finding people with the right temperament to really actually consider and debate a point, let's just say, yeah, it's a difficult point here. But I appreciate the idea. And let's just say if we can get closer to it, we're definitely working on in the background. If we have anything we can talk about in terms of our programming or how it's working on, we'll be sure to let you all know, as it's very important the way you all interact with us. Well, we got what we got for right now, and in the meantime, we're always working on more things, is what I'll say for the moment.
Yeah, okay. Again, give it some thought, and again, if you can get a group, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 people, and if they respect each other and wait and let each other get the comment, I think it'll be a very, 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 very good point of view. Matter of fact, I'd like to be part of that sometime if I have the right time, you have the right time too, because I have some points of view I'd like to get across. And I think both sides should listen to each other. That's my point. Listen and then speak that point of view.
Yeah.
But I'll let you go. I know you're running out of time.
Yeah, getting towards the end of the hour here, so appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
You too.
All right, and that is going to take us through that next break in the hour here. We have more comments that have come in online, including some point and counterpoint here. I'm not going to repeat that full. Well, you didn't say the full quote there, thankfully. But tell you what, we'll close out the show. Tell you what I got coming up for you. Get to a couple more of those comments after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That 4-car crash on I-10 eastbound at Giles is finally cleared. All lanes are back open, and the backup has disappeared. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Loma Land, an injury accident reported there. Lee Trevino or Pelicano could be an alternate. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Edgemere, an earlier crash, still slow in traffic there. Global Reach still very slow southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana with a half-hour wait. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Panera. They say to never mess with the classics, but Panera did that and more with their new chef's chicken sandwiches. Pan-seared chicken, a secret garlic aioli recipe, Parmesan crisps, and pickled chips all on a buttery brioche roll. Try one for only a $1 delivery fee when you order on their app. Restrictions apply.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Did you know that about 70% of the heat transfer in your average home is through the ceiling? What that means is no matter what type of air conditioning system you have, insulation will make your home more comfortable. Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing has the ability to install closed cavity insulation, which can dramatically improve the performance of enclosed patios and converted garages. So call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing for a free estimate at 595-4529.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
My mom and dad are the best. Ever since they called the early childhood program, I'm doing so much better, and mom and dad don't worry or stress as much as they used to. They seem a bazillion times happier, and all services are free.
Parenting isn't easy, so we signed up for the free early childhood program at the El Paso Center for Children. They taught us how to deal with COVID-19 stress and be better parents. Lots of other free services are available. Call 915-500-4105. That's 500-4105.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having tuned in for us here on Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Appreciate everyone who has taken the time to tune in, get informed, talk about the important things, chime in. Covered a lot of ground today, and we'll continue doing that, including tomorrow. Do have a new interview for you here, and it will be a new show, as I have, in the midst of this show, found out I don't have jury duty tomorrow. They mentioned it previously that that was impending on me. It was going to be tomorrow, but we have been released, unless that's a fraudulent email, in which case I'm SOL. Any case, we'll be here and talking about other things, including some of the crime rates and the rates comparison to other cities here in the Borderland region, what some of the conclusions that can be drawn from it so far, and delving a little deeper as we can. So that's coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, thank to everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, doing this and respecting the forum as much as can be done. I do appreciate it, and we'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do every Monday through Friday here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Until then, I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That 4-car crash on I-10 eastbound at Giles is finally cleared. All lanes are back open, and the backup has disappeared. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Loma Land, an injury accident reported there. Lee Trevino or Pelicano could be an alternate. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Edgemere, an earlier crash, still slow in traffic there. Global Reach still very slow southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana with a half-hour wait. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Now,